Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see my screen that I'm sharing here. And as Ron alluded to there, talking about the human element, that's what I'm going to go through over the next little bit, talking about how to secure your humans through the use of security awareness training, and essentially talk to you about the security ABCs, seeing as it's an education forum here today. So I'm a security awareness advocate for KnowBe4. I love what I do because I get to go around and talk to people about cybersecurity and about how to make sure that you're secure and safe online. I'm also a college professor here in Orlando at the college where I teach cybersecurity. So I know the feeling, what it's like to stand up in front of a class, to instruct students, to get people to get that aha moment and be able to understand particular concepts. So a little bit about KnowBe4 real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but we are the world's largest security awareness training and phishing assessment company. We're based out of Tampa Bay, Florida. We've helped tens of thousands of folks through our training software. But essentially, one of the things that I'm very most proud of working for KnowBe4 is the fact that we want to make sure that people make smarter security decisions each day and that they learn about those and able to make the, as Ron said, not putting those flash drives in, being able to spot those phishing emails. So just kind of at a high level, taking a step back with regards to cybersecurity. The orange line that you see is the amount of money that's been spent in cybersecurity by organizations over the last 14 years. And the little gray line there is the number of breaches that have occurred every year. And you can kind of see that the amount of spending is going on, the number of breaches are still occurring as well. So it's kind of a race there. But when you break down that spending, you see that 47% goes to networking, 22% goes to endpoint, another 14 goes to web and identity security. And there at the very end, that little one right there, that's about 3% that gets spent on humans. Training that we get, security awareness, additional training. We see that as a significant underinvestment. Why? Because according to the Verizon data breach report last year, they claim, or they stated, that humans have always been the weakest link in security because over 50% of the breaches that are occurring are due to a result of phishing, stolen credentials, things that involve the human. Now, our position, my personal position, is the fact that people are a critical layer within the fabric of your security program. Just like the students that come into school, they're there to learn. And people can be educated, they can be taught. And if we educate them and provide them that awareness, sometimes they may not want to do it, but that's all part of the education aspect. But instead of them being the weakest link, they could be your strongest asset. And what I'm going to go through here in the next little bit is to talk about the ABCs of security training and focusing particularly on awareness, behaviors, and culture. So I'm going to kind of skip the first one. I want to talk about behaviors first, because behaviors are what we already are as humans. We have behaviors that are part of us, either that was we've learned growing up, things we've adapted over the years, but a lot of that comes from our brain. And our brain is pretty well where the root of all the deception, everything starts from within us. And our brain's job essentially is to filter, interpret, and present a particular reality to us. So for example, I'm letting you read it here. So how many people had to reread it? How many people went, what if I told you? And then you look at the next line and went, you read the top line wrong. What if I told you? The word was transposed because our brain reads from left to right. Once it knows what the word is, it's able to move on. Essentially, within our brains, we have two systems. We have a fast thinking and we have a slow thinking. And the fast thinking is continuously scanning the environment. It's fast, but it is, that error prone. Whereas the system two, the slow thinking is more methodical. It takes effort. If I were to say what's 2 + 2, immediately you can say 4. Well, I would hope we can all say 4. But we know that because we were trained and educated as children, and we know that 2 + 2 = 4, 4 + 4 = 8, and so on down the line. But if I were to say, what's 5,349 divided by 61? You're not going to know that right away unless you're a math prodigy and you can figure that out, and that's great. But normally we would either take our smartphone, open up the calculator app, and calculate that number. But we could also sit down with pen and paper and figure that out as well, figure out that long division, because we were trained and educated in school. So the same thing kind of applies here with the behaviors, and when it comes to our email, when it comes to the different security attack vectors that cyber criminals like to do. And what they end up doing a lot of the time with phishing is essentially social engineering. And they manipulate us with different lures: greed, urgency, curiosity, fear, self-interest, helpfulness. You know, you might get an email that says, hey, you've won a $500 gift card to Walmart. It's like, woo, great. Okay, click on the link to redeem your prize. Somebody that's not aware is going to click on that link because, hey, there's $500 that I can get to go shopping at Walmart or Target or whatever store you like. But with that awareness, and most likely a lot of us watching now, you're going, yeah, I'm not going to fall for that because I'm aware of what that is. So that brings us to awareness. Let's talk about security awareness programs. And essentially within KnowBe4, we look at being able to go through and train your users, and you train them on all different things relating to cybersecurity, whether it's things that are important to them, passwords, phishing emails, being able to check for links, making sure people aren't tailgating when they come into buildings, making sure that they're disposing of confidential documentation properly, all the different things that relate to them within their role. Then we go through and we start phishing the users. And essentially you want to phish them. And a lot of the time people may feel that they're being in a gotcha moment. It's like, oh, you were trying to catch me so you can make me feel bad. And that's not the case. It's designed so that you phish your users and you let them fall for your phishing examples, not the bad guys. Because if the bad guys get them to click on a link, that's opening up the front door into your organization. Then you look at the results, you review it, and then you go back. Why do you want to phish? Well, essentially, if doing your own phishing assessments, when you do phase one, that's kind of that baseline before you've given them any training. We were seeing through our studies, 38% of the people on average, without any training, were falling for phishing links, phishing attachments, those social engineering emails. So out of 100 people that may work in your, work in your school, 38 of them are clicking on a link. That's a lot of front doors that are being opened to let the bad guys come in and steal what they want. After about 90 days, we get into phase two, and now we are looking at a significant reduction, almost pretty well in half right there. So now we're down to about 14 people out of about 100. So not as good, but a lot more manageable. After about a year, now you're down to about less than 5%, which is even more manageable. You're reducing the risk of the opportunity of the bad guys being able to get into your organization. Essentially, overall, about 87% improvement is what can come from that. You get reduced data loss, reduced malware infections, less opportunity for ransomware attacks, which we've seen a lot of. You're also increasing user productivity, because if they get their system infected with any type of malware, your best practice is to wipe that machine. They go without their machine for a couple of days while that system gets re-imaged. Also, it gets security at the top of the mind, that awareness for them. We have a case study, it's available on our website, where it was an Illinois K through 12 school district. They took their phish prone percentage from 27% to 0.3%. That's across the whole school district. That is fantastic change within 5 months. The response from the teachers was favorable. I'm married to a school teacher as well, and after sharing this with her, she was really impressed, because we love our teachers, but we also know that they're the teachers. Having to teach them can always be a fun challenge. But it was great that the teachers were favorable of it, because they were most likely learning from it, from those different phishing emails that are going out there, and being able to spot them not only at work, but most likely at home as well. One of the things to consider with your awareness program is there's a gap. Security awareness and putting out the training program and getting that 100% completion, that's only part of it. There's that secure behavior that comes into play as well. And there is that knowledge intention gap. Essentially, what you're looking at here is the idea of, just because they're aware, they know about it, doesn't mean that they care. And if you try to work against human nature, a lot of times you're gonna fail, in the sense that forcing them to do the training If they don't understand why it's important to the organization, they're maybe less inclined to do that. And more importantly, what your employees do is a lot more important than what they know. So if you see those actions, those percentages going down, then you know that they're taking the steps to be able to restrict that access. So you have your awareness program. If you've got that going and you're doing the phishing assessments and you're getting your numbers down, it's time to take that security awareness program to the next level. And what we're talking about here is security culture. Awareness is great, but if you've got that culture mindset, it's going to make things even better for your organization, your school. Organizations do believe that security culture is important for success. 94% in a study that we did. But the problem was nobody could properly define security culture. Some defined it as compliance to the policies. 22% said it's, hey, it's everybody's responsibility to be secure. 24% were saying they knew it and they're aware of it. So the real question now becomes, how do you properly define security culture so that we can all align to it? And essentially, from our Know Before research team, they defined it as security culture is the ideas, customs, and social behaviors that impact your security organization. And that's true, because how your organization, your employees, your teachers, your staff, they're watching out for those phishing emails, having that diligence, not finding those flash drives and turning into security and not plugging them in. Those are the social behaviors. And we break it down to 7 different dimensions. You have your attitudes, whether you like something or you don't. You're going to have employees and folks that aren't going to like doing the security training, but their behaviors make them realize that, yes, I need to go through and do it. The cognition of understanding what is involved, what is involved with that security culture and with their responsibilities, looking at the norms, the unwritten rules, essentially, that they're going to have. When you've got that peer pressure and everybody talking about it with regards to, hey, making sure that we're protecting the school, we're not falling for those phishing attacks, that responsibility goes a long way. Communication goes 2 ways, whether it's coming from the teachers up to the superintendent or the other way around or from the IT team. It's important to make sure that communication is there. And then finally, compliance, and not just checkbox compliance or security compliance, but the compliance that they're aware of those policies and that they're following them. The other thing to do is make sure you're completely honest with yourself and your goals with what your organizational culture will tolerate. A lot of different schools may have different cultures, maybe sensitive to certain things. So it's always important to make sure you take in the vision and the mission of the school with regards to, and the district with regards to your culture. Now, I know for the IT folks, the administrators, you're the little bulldozer there on that InfoSec team, and your whole organization or the school district is that large ship, the Ever Given that got stuck. Some days that's what it feels like. You're that little bit, but it always reminds me of the riddle. How do you eat an elephant? You eat them one bite at a time, and a lot of the times that's what it takes. You just focus on 1 or 2 behaviors, get those handled and in check, and then you focus on the next behaviors. What is it that you want to follow next? One of the things we do have available through our website is the latest security culture report. We look at education as well. I encourage you to go check it out. It gives you a lot more detail with regards to culture and taking your organization to that next level. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up, kind of touch on some highlights here real quick. But essentially, there are 10 phases for your security awareness program. And this is what we've recognized over the year. Essentially, you've got your first level where you're increased awareness for your InfoSec team. That might be you got a PowerPoint presentation, or one of the professional development days, you're doing a security awareness program. You're just doing the minimum to educate the staff and the people, the employees. But the problem is you fall into that first trap of, hey, just because they're aware doesn't mean they care. Then you start increasing the content delivery. You might have online learning management solutions where they're doing computer-based training. That helps. Then you start getting into the testing. You're doing those phishing assessments, maybe social engineering, seeing how susceptible the teachers are, or the teaching staff and the district staff are susceptible to those different tests. And by go through and doing that, makes gives you better insight, who needs what learning, and so forth. You work your way around and you start getting into user behavior management, adaptive learner experience. And essentially, you're now starting to make the employee, the users, your human endpoint. We have the endpoint detection and remediation software, the anti-malware, but now your human starts, when you get to that level 10 phase, now these are your strongest asset. They're no longer the weakest link. They're educated. They've got security at the top of their mind. They're watching out for those kind of things. When you do your security awareness and you have your programs, you want to plan like a marketer, but test like an attacker. You know, you're going to have those different phishing automation tests. You want to increase them as people start being able to spot them. You want to make them a lot harder and harder and harder because the bad guys are coming in with their hard ones as well. Have different messages for different departments. Teachers may have one, administrators may have another one, district staff may have another one, because they're all going to be focusing on different things. Finance will be worried about money, and they're more susceptible to those business email compromises. You have the different learning modules that are available, newsletters that can go out. You can have different signage, different themes that related to the different folks, and you have that spread out over the weeks throughout a course of a year. This isn't something that you want to be doing once a month or you know, a couple times a year. This is something you want to have some new information going out every week if possible. One of the other great things out of know before is the Inside Man. This was a video series that we had created several years ago, and it's story first. It's about 110 minutes. It's broken up into 10 episodes of about 8 minutes each, but it focuses on story first and then security second. And it was so popular, we ended up doing a second season. We've now done a third season. And if you want, you can actually watch the first season now available on Amazon Prime. So if you have your security-minded folks or you feel you're security-minded, go watch the first season on Amazon Prime. Like I said, it's about an hour and a half. You can watch the whole thing through. And at the end of each episode, the 8-minute episodes, there are little tips and information to be aware of with regards to cybersecurity in your organization. It's story first, security second, not security first that you see in a lot of them. So you get involved in the story. And after you watch the first season, I have a feeling we might get folks coming back going, hey, we want the second and third. We want to be able to see what happens. Really, really, really well done. Essentially, if you're not preparing for an attack, you're heading down a very ugly road fast. So otherwise, hopefully those two little bins are empty. Otherwise, the folks in the convertible are in for a messy day. But you want to make sure you're prepared, looking ahead, having your plan, working to get the culture increased for your organization. So that's everything that I have.